is going on, sports fans? Welcome to another action-packed episode of EBC Sports International. I'm your host, Michael Hudson, coming at you from Seattle, Washington. And before we start, I can't forget to introduce to all of you the panelists who I'm blessed to call my friend. So first and foremost, we have Ken Cruz from Washington, D.C.
I don't know which one of our 17 batters to cry on.
I cannot wait until Ken talks about his heartbreak. Next, we have our one and only EJ Gonzalez from Alexandria, Virginia.
Hey, what's up, Mike? What's up, everyone? Hey, I was going to say, I think the Wizards can be happy because they achieved the same fate as the Lakers this year. First round exit. But hey, we should be good for next year, then.
Oh. Hey, if you're not, in the words of Vin Diesel, if you're not first, you're last. So it's okay.
All right, and last but not least, after a very long hiatus, we have from Toronto, Canada, Zarita Say.
Hi guys, good to be back. Unlike these guys, I am carefree this season for playoffs because my Raptors didn't even make it. So I'm just enjoying the show.
Oh yeah, we need both. Well, hey, thanks for joining us tonight. And again, before we go on, I just want to remind our viewers that we are by no means experts at all, but rather a good group of friends expressing our own opinions and sharing the same passion for sports. Now let's get started with some sports news around the country. First up, we have Ken giving us an injury update for 76ers superstar center Joel Embiid. Ken?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mike. Well, unfortunately, it's happened again. Joel Embiid went down with another injury and suffered a small meniscus tear in his right knee in Game 4 against the Wizards. He missed Game 5, but Philly still won and advanced to the second round, where they'll face a streaking Atlanta Hawks team with two strong bigs in Clint Capella and John Collins. Some good news from today is that the 76ers head coach Doc Rivers told reporters that Embiid looked great going through the shooting drills. Rivers did say, though, that he's unsure if the big man will play in Game 1 this Sunday versus the Hawks. Good thing for Philly is that they have Dwight Howard and Mike Scott to fill in while Embiid recovers. The 76ers were 2-1 versus the Hawks during the regular season. The playoffs are a completely different animal, though. Ice-cold Trae Young is embracing his villain role and is looking to pull off another upset like he did versus the Knicks in round 1. Even if the 76ers squeeze out a win in the series, they will definitely need Embiid to have any chance of beating the Nets or the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Kenny. Appreciate it. Staying with the NBA, Zarita has some news for us concerning the Boston Celtics franchise. What's going on, Z?
So NBA fans know that when there's an early exit for an organization in the playoffs, usually leads to someone being in the hot seat. Even top organizations like the Boston Celtics are not immune to this. So less than 24 hours from when the Celtics were eliminated in the first round, it was announced that Brad Stevens will no longer be serving as head coach of the Boston Celtics after 8 seasons. But unlike other demotions that we've seen in recent seasons, Stevens was actually promoted to president of basketball operations, which brings on another major shift in the front office. It was announced at the same time that Danny Ainge will be retiring from his position of president of basketball operations and will be succeeded by Stevens. So by the end of his coaching career, Stevens recorded 354 wins with 282 losses, where he led the team to a playoff appearance in actually every single season, with 3 conference finals in the last 4 years. But, however, Stevens could never seem to get his team out of the Eastern Conference Finals. As for Ainge, he is putting behind 18 years with the Celtics organization, which started in 2003. His biggest and most successful move was probably bringing on Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen for the Big Three with Paul Pierce, which then immediately led to a championship in 2007-2008. However, his last big move is gonna leave a bad taste with fans, because it was when he traded Isaiah Thomas to the Cleveland Cavaliers in a heart-wrenching performance during the playoffs. Though the organization may be experiencing a major shakeup in their front office, the organization is going to be just fine with talent like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown as part of their core. So that's it for me, Mike.
Thanks, E. So our last story comes from EJ, who has some news relating to one of the biggest female tennis superstars out there. What's the good word, E?
Yeah, so early in the week, in the world of tennis, much news was surrounding the 23-year-old Japanese phenom Naomi Osaka, as she announced that she would be withdrawing from the French Open tournament. A week prior to her round one match, Osaka made the decision to skip speaking to the press during the tournament. She cited that decision was related to her own mental health. Now, after her round one win, Osaka did skip speaking with the media and then was subsequently fined $15,000 by the French Open. Now, shortly after this, Osaka went to Twitter to announce that she would be withdrawing from the tournament so that, quote, everyone can get back to focusing on the tennis going on in Paris, end quote. Osaka further explained the struggles she has been dealing with regarding depression and anxiety. For now, Naomi says that she will be taking some time away from the tennis court and hopes to work with the tour to find ways to make things better for both the fans and the players, and also the press alike. Big name athletes such as Serena Williams, Kyrie Irving, Stephen Curry, and Russell Wilson also poured in their support for Osaka's decisions and gave their kudos to her for speaking up on her battles with mental health. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, E. So that's it for the sports stories from this week. When we come back, we jump right into the NBA. We'll be right back after these messages.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Hey everybody, welcome back to EBC Sports International. I'm Michael Hudson. So our first topic tonight is a big one. The Los Angeles Lakers losing in the very first round of the NBA playoffs to the Phoenix Suns, 4-1. The Suns' Devin Booker was spectacular last night in the game-clinching game, scoring 47 points, including a two-handed slam to seal the game 113-100. LeBron James did what he could, and even Anthony Davis tried to give it a go on an already injured left groin, but they could not force a Game 7. Ken, we know you are the number one Lakers fan on the show, and your heart must be shattered in a millions of pieces. So the floor is yours. You vent away about last night.
All right, guys. So, oh man, I don't even know where to start, but I'll just preface it by this. This is probably going to be my longest monologue, soliloquy, whatever it is, of the show, of life. But it's one of those things where it's just like, everything started from the end of last season to the beginning of this season, right? I mean, we started off, we spoke about this on the show, right? There was just a really short amount of time between last season's finals to the beginning of this season. And we were like, okay, what are the risks of doing this? Well, the risk is that there's a higher chance of injury, and that's exactly what happened. How did that happened this year. Well, not even just during the regular season, right, where the Lakers had LeBron and AD, their two main guys, get hurt, which allowed them to go from, the top of the Western Conference to literally a play-in game. But also the 3 out of 4 of the conference finalists last year, the Boston Celtics, the Miami Heat, and the Lakers, are all out of playoffs already. The Nuggets are only in the playoffs because they are being carried by the massive shoulders of Nikola Jokic. And if it weren't for him, they'd be already out because Jamal Murray's out for the season. So I know that's a later topic, but that shows that, and as I mentioned, like, that team was also injured. And so it goes to show that the NBA, yes, they pulled off a great season as far as being able to bounce back, have the fans in the stands slowly, and then now, look, do you see Phoenix the other day? That place was rocking. It's an amazing thing to be able to have basketball back, have the fans in the stands, but the product is affected because of how short the amount of time there was from season to season. And just going off of the series, there's a couple things that I want to mention. The main one, and the one that everyone's talking about, is how LeBron walked off before the end of the game, the last 2 games. And the whole series, right? This is the first time he's lost ever in the first round. Does that affect his legacy? I don't think it hurts his legacy, but I don't think it helps his legacy either way, right? What hurts more is his bad sportsmanship. Yes, he signed Devin Booker's jersey at the end, at the hallway, but there's so many things that, everyone's eyes are on LeBron James, and he knows this, right? Every single press interview he has, he thinks very well. He says what he believes in, and he's very well composed. But I don't know what he thinks is gonna happen. What was gonna happen by doing this? And this isn't the first time he's done this, where he leaves without shaking hands after losing. I get that you're literally one of the most competitive people, but you're also the face of the NBA, and this does not look good, especially for the young fans, because that just shows that it's okay to do that when it isn't. Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing that I think as far as tarnishing his legacy, because at the end of the day, Anthony Davis got hurt, right? I admire him for trying to go out and play, but imagine if something worse happened and he twisted his knee, broke a foot, broke an ankle, it was a dangerous move to put him on the court so soon after suffering a groin injury. And I feel he should have sat, 1, and 2, there's just too much hanging on the future of the Laker franchise with him, with his multi-year deal with us. And it's just that was a very, very risky move. And I'm glad it wasn't worse than what it was, right? Lastly, I want to talk about certain players. Let me read off their averages versus the Suns. Kyle Kuzma, 6.3 points per game. KCP, 6.2 points per game. Alex Caruso, 5.8 points per game. Montrezl Harrell, 5.8 points per game. Markieff Morris, 2.3 points per game. Disgusting. This will not cut it. This won't even beat the Memphis Grizzlies. This is absolutely abysmal. In Joey from Friends' words, this was an abysmal series for all of the supporting cast. It's just everyone failed LeBron. And Anthony Davis did it because, obviously he got hurt, but everyone else did not show up, whether it be one game, multiple games, or in Kyle Kuzma's games, all the games. It's just Kuz, you're a champion, bro. You've seen this before. Why do you look so lost in the court? I was genuinely dumbfounded at just how much of a rookie he looked on the court. And it was just, I'm not angry. I'm disappointed that That's where I'll end this
Oh, I can
monologue. And see.
I can definitely tell. Hey, Zarita, so Ken kind of touched upon LeBron's legacy. He believed that, this game didn't hurt his legacy, but it didn't help it as well. I wanted to get your thoughts about that, and also how much blame should LeBron get for this failure in the first round?
Like Ken said, I don't think it hurts his legacy, but also it's not a good look, let's put it simply. But at the same time, can you blame a guy who's never been in a situation where he lost this poorly? Maybe he just literally didn't know how to act. Maybe he didn't know how to approach the other team. And even the picture with Devin Booker, he didn't even look that happy giving the jersey, which I think is weird to do when they just beat you. But like Ken said, LeBron's a very methodical man, so I don't know what got into him. Maybe that's the human part in LeBron of emotions take over. You want to win, and it didn't turn out your way. But as for who's to blame, I don't think you can blame it on LeBron. I mean, he didn't look as aggressive as playoff LeBron normally looks, but maybe that's a question of father time kicking in. Like, he's about to be, 36? And he's entering his 19th season. So can you really blame the guy? But I think at this point, I would blame the front office of the Lakers of not building this team properly, because they know AD's injury prone. They had the bigs last season to back him up to get into a position where they don't have to rely on him until later on in the season or in the playoffs. But when you have Drummond and Marc Gasol as your backup bigs, what are you going to do with that? Right? Like, you have Marc Gasol literally starting for you. I think that's kind of their white flag. But I think it's front office who didn't kind of anticipate just how injury prone their players are.
Absolutely. That's a great take, Zarita. And I think, at the end of the day, let's be real. If Anthony Davis is 100% healthy, they win this series. I don't think we disagree there. EJ, I wanted to get your take about, the Lakers' future. Obviously LeBron is still a top two, if not the top player in the entire world when it comes to basketball. What do you think the Lakers have to do in the offseason to basically get back on top?
It's crazy, right? I think entering this season, the Lakers made so many moves that everyone thought it was impossible for them not to make the finals, right? Even if they did face injury. Because that's how deep they were. And then it's just crazy how they performed against the Suns. I think we need to give more kudos to Devin Booker and Chris Paul for leading the Suns even over an injured Lakers team that still had, again, multiple championship pieces together in that team. Marc Gasol, Zarita mentioned, he's not a scrub. He was part of the championship team in Toronto just a couple of years ago. I know Ken brought up the point that, yes, LeBron hit that time is usually needed in the off season for them to recover and recuperate. And, I think the short season or the short off season led to so many injuries in the league this year. But I think that they had the right personnel to still at least give the Suns a little bit more of a challenge. To lose 2 games by 30 points, it's like, to lose 1 game by 30, and then also in the final game to be blown by 30 going into the half. It's just like, what happened to the Lakers? Now, Mike, I know you saw all the memes on Instagram today of LeBron playing GM and all these skits and getting rid of every single person on the Lakers except for Anthony Davis. And that's probably what's going to happen. I think exactly. Again, LeBron's never exited in the first round of the playoffs. That means that there's something really wrong with the roster that they put together. Though they have big names on the roster, they're going to have to make some moves in the offseason. Keep everyone, everyone named Davis and James, and everybody else is on the market, if you ask me. But yeah, definitely they're going to have to make some moves. But next year, I don't want to hear the excuse of them having not a long break, because they got a first round exit this year.
Well, we'll see. Again, this is definitely historic proportions, because we're used to seeing LeBron go to the finals every single year. So, hopefully he'll get healthy, and we'll see about next year. So moving on to our next topic, it's going to be all about the hashtag nothing but Nets, probably the top NBA team right now. The Brooklyn Nets, led by Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, took down the Boston Celtics 4-1 this past week. They scored at will and also impressed on the defensive side of the floor. EJ, we're going to go to you again.
Yep.
Are the Brooklyn Nets as good as advertised at this stage in the playoffs?
It's crazy because we barely saw the big three play in the regular season, and here they are playing together. I'm surprised that they even lost a game. I'm surprised it wasn't a sweep. But I guess you got to give kudos to Jason Tatum, putting up 50 to give Boston a chance to not get swept. At least they didn't get swept. And surprisingly, the Miami Heat is the one that gets swept by the Bucks. So the Bucks are also playing really good, but we're talking about the Nets. The Nets look great, man. I mean, James Harden is the same James Harden that we've seen, that many people were skeptical that, these three are not going to be able to play together. James Harden finished Game 5 with a triple-double, a huge triple-double, 30-point triple-double, while Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving both put up 20-plus points in that game. And then if you go back to Game 4, they combined for 104 points, just the three of them. So if you're telling me on a nightly basis, these three can average 100 points together, the bench can average 20 points, and they have some good players on their bench. Blake Griffin, we got one of the best shooters. And what's his name? Oh my goodness.
Joe Harris.
Yeah, Joe Harris. I mean, and Landry Shamit's actually been playing really good. Bruce Brown has been their basically best defender on the team. I mean, these guys look great. And imagine if LaMarcus Aldridge, didn't have that hiccup, they would also have him. They would be stacked. But yeah, I mean, the Nets are definitely impressive. The only way to stop them is if you prevent the big three from scoring 100 points per game, which is going to be very hard.
Absolutely. So, Zarita, I want to get your take. Do you think the Nets will be successful? Let's say, for example, one of the big three get injured. You think they could still go all the way with just two out of the big three?
Oh, absolutely. I think, like EJ was saying, they're too deep not to succeed, even if one of these guys or two of these guys go down. I think I was watching them and I looked at Albert. I was like, how is this team real? Like, how did the NBA allow this team to come together? Because even with the limited games that they have played, they look so cohesive. They look so in tune with each other, and they didn't need all that time. Everyone was arguing, oh, let's see them when they go further in the playoffs. But I think this team is so tuned in, especially with Steve Nash too. There's just a hold on this team where they look so together that regardless of, let's say Kyrie's not having a good night, let's rely on somebody else. Kevin Durant will pick up or something like that. And then even Blake Griffin, a guy who was everyone kind of written off as like a scrub. This guy's not going to do anything. It's that meme of like him. I think it was Willy Wonka where he's like using a cane and then all of a sudden he does like a flip. I think that's it's playing with Kevin Durant that brings out the best in these players, and these guys are going to go to the finals. I hate to say it, but it's going to happen.
Great take, Zarita. So Ken, if the Nets win it all this year, they win the championship, is this going to basically be revolutionize the way teams are made up, that every team's going to have a big three or big four to win it all?
Well, I mean, this would be like the second or third coming of this, right? I mean, this first coming was the Miami Heatles, right? With Chris Bosh, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade. And then you had your second coming with KD. That was actually larger. KD, Steph, Clay, and then also, Boston was a little different, and Draymond, right? Boston had, Ray Allen, who was like tailing out. It's not Milwaukee Bucks Ray Allen. And then also Kevin Garnett was like literally like at the sunset of his peak. And then Paul Pierce was like at the top, but I'd say these guys are literally in their primes, all three of them. And so that's going to be extremely hard to do unless you do what James Harden and what Anthony Davis did, which is force themselves into a team. And my guess is that the owners and presidents and GMs are going to be a lot wiser to things like this. Because I mean, like the only ones that I could see like doing something like this, but they're already loyal, who should do something like this is probably Dame Lillard. Dame Lillard should probably get out of Portland, but he's loyal to a fault. It's one of those things where this was. I don't know if it's going to be the last of its kind, but it's going to be very hard to do this again because it's all the stars, everything aligned, right? I mean, KD and Kyrie were hurt last year, so that helped. That helped them, come in strong this year. And then James Harden, just came in fat and then like forced himself out, right? I mean, like it just so happens that everything happened at the right time. But I mean, I know we're going to save it for the next block, but I feel like this is not necessarily it. I don't see them cruising their way all the way to the finals and winning it all very easily. I think there are going to be some hurdles, and I'm very interested to see what comes up, not just in the finals, but next round specifically.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha. Well, hey guys, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk Nets and Bucks, as well as the Hawks versus 76ers in an upcoming semifinals playoff matchup. Don't go anywhere. You're watching EBC Sports International.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced. Not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Agila Pilipinas. A 1-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Agila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Agila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science, and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to thank our help outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to EBC Sports International. I'm Michael Hudson. We have some breaking news. We just got word that Portland Trailblazers head coach Terry Stotts just parted ways with the franchise. So I believe he was a head coach for 7 or 8 years now. So that is some pretty
that call you just got right now. That was the news, right, Mike?
Breaking.
Constantly reading all the time. But hey, we're going to stay with the Nets in this topic, and they'll be matched up against Giannis Antetokounmpo, who I said it right, and the Milwaukee Bucks in the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs, with Game 1 happening tomorrow on Saturday. So Ken, let's get your take first. What are your thoughts on the matchup and who comes out on top in this series?
As I mentioned, as I kind of alluded to the last segment, this is, I think, going to be the best test for Brooklyn, is because they just don't have. I mean, they just don't match up very well against this big team. Drew Holiday is the X factor in this because he can lock up, not lock up, but he can slow down either James Harden or Kyrie Irving. And you also have PJ Tucker to kind of annoy Kevin Durant a little bit, even though he's a little short. But I mean, like with Giannis and Chris Middleton, like, I mean, Giannis last series, he averaged 23 and a half and 15 rebounds and almost 8 assists and almost 2 steals. I mean, I think this next series versus them is going to be an extremely difficult matchup, especially with, like, if Blake Griffin averages 4.8 points like what he did this last series, then I think they're going to struggle mightily, especially since Jeff Green is supposedly not playing game 1. There's a good chance that because of the length of the Milwaukee Bucks, they'll probably steal game 1. And then I also want to mention that this will be the true test for Steve Nash as the head coach, because the Bucks are going to test them. The Bucks are going to annoy these guys, and Steve Nash has to have a great strategy, not just in game but in between games. To imagine if they got blown out the first game, like what's Steve Nash gonna draw up the second game? Is he gonna give more time to Claxton, over Griffin? Is Shamet gonna get more burn? I don't know. So I feel like this is gonna be a big test. I'm very excited for the series, and I am pushing and pulling for the Milwaukee Bucks. I am on the Bucks train. Let's go, choo choo!
Wow, you heard it here first, everybody. So, EJ, want to get your thoughts on this as well. What do let's just say if the Bucks do lose the series, what does this do for Giannis's legacy as far as his NBA career goes?
Man, if the Bucks lose a series, I don't know. It's not gonna be an easy out for the Nets, as Ken mentioned. I just want to go over their regular season this year. The Bucks actually beat the Nets in this season 2-1, and the one game that they lost, it was a 2-point victory for the Nets. So it was a very close and decisive match. Actually, all 3 matchups were, I think, decided by at least 6 points or less. So it's going to be a pretty good matchup. Now, I think that the Bucks are going to make a hard time for the Brooklyn Nets, especially because these guys also play defense. I mean, look at the length of Giannis and the strength he has over Kevin Durant. They pretty much stack up height-wise, but like strength-wise, Giannis obviously has the upper hand. So I think Giannis can make him, bump him a little bit on the other side. Even though I'm a Kevin Durant fan, Prince George's represent PG County. But I think that Giannis is going to give Durant the hardest time in these playoffs if they match up against each other. And like Ken said, Drew Holiday is going to give Kyrie Irving a pretty hard time. He's not going to be able to have easy looks, which allowed him to have a 40, 50, 90 season this year. For Kyrie, obviously he had easy looks because a lot of the attention was going to James Harden and to Kevin Durant. But if Drew Holiday is able to manage that, and then Chris Middleton is able to manage the other star, then they're going to have a really hard time. And the Bucks have really good three-point shooting. The loss of DiVincenzo, though, is a pretty big blow for the Milwaukee Bucks. So that's probably the one thing that the Nets have going for them, obviously, other than having 3 of the best players in the NBA on one team for the Nets. But now, if the Bucks do lose to the Nets, I don't know how confident I would be with Giannis being happy in Milwaukee. He's been preaching about loyalty, just like Damian Lillard. But when you look at Giannis, he's one of the most competitive guys in the NBA, and he's not going to want to keep losing, especially after winning back-to-back MVPs. He knows he's one of the best players in the NBA, and the only thing missing from him right now is a championship. And if the Bucks can't get out of this funk in the playoffs, then I think Giannis has to decide whether or not he wants to stay in Milwaukee or really push the buttons of the Milwaukee front offices to find another star to join him. I definitely think Middleton would be the one to go if Giannis does decide to stay, just because he's probably going to be the best centerpiece around for a trade. But it's going to be disappointing if the Bucks lose. But to lose against the Nets, that's kind of that's kind of a given.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. Zarita, what do the Bucks have to do to slow down the Nets, especially on the offensive side of the ball?
I think their defense is going to have to be literally perfection in order to stop this offensive juggernaut. Like these guys were saying, I think this is going to be the first time we're going to see real basketball for the Eastern Conference between these two teams, because when you look at it, the Bucks look amazing because they played Miami. Like Miami is not who they were last season. So I think that's why everyone's kind of on a high horse for the Bucks. But honestly, seeing the track record of the Bucks, this team more or less hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, in terms of personnel. So I still have to be convinced of what they can actually do in the playoffs. So I think defense has to be pristine. Middleton has to keep playing the way that he's playing, because without Middleton, I don't think offensively they can even gain traction against this team. But the one thing I'm going to disagree on with EJ is kind of Giannis being the one to dictate what happens with the organization. I think it's going to come into question of whether or not this organization is going to build around Giannis, because he's kind of shown he still has holes in his game, like your free throw shooting, man. Like, come on, you're the star of this team, and you can't get your free throws in clutch moments. I think it's going to open people's eyes of what kind of star power Giannis has, because I don't know how many seasons has it been where he can't pull his team through like at least the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think it'll be eye-opening for a lot of people for sure.
Absolutely. So, definitely looking forward to that. But we are going to stay with the Eastern Conference and move on between the Atlanta Hawks, who will be taking on the Philadelphia 76ers in the second round matchup. Led by Ice Trae Young, the Hawks upset the New York Knicks in the first round of the playoffs, beating them 4-1, while the 76ers easily defeated the Wizards 4-1. Sorry, EJ. But
inevitable. It was inevitable.
But EJ, we'll start with you, man. Lend us your thoughts and who comes out on top.
Oh, man. So, first off, it all depends on the health of Joel Embiid. I mean, that small meniscus tear that we mentioned in the first part of our show is going to be a huge role as to what happens in this series. I think that the Philadelphia 76ers actually weren't very overwhelming to me. The games were pretty close for the Washington Wizards, which I don't think they should have been, especially when both Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook weren't playing very well in a lot of those games. And the games were still very close. At least 4 out of the 5 were very close. And that was with, obviously, Joel Embiid hurt, but that's going to be the biggest role of what's going to happen in this series. Now, I want to talk about Trae Young because, my goodness, that guy is cold, man. Like, I lived in Atlanta for a couple of years, and I guess I should have been rooting for the Atlanta Hawks, but for some reason, I wanted to see the New York Knicks, break that cold streak in the playoffs and, have excitement again in New York with the Knicks. But Trae Young, man, I think after this series, I was kind of getting annoyed with all the trash talking that Trae Young was doing during the series. But at the end of it all, I don't know. For some reason, I loved it, and I wanted to see more of Trae Young talking trash, going back and forth with players. I think it's great to see from the guys in Atlanta. And Trae Young averaged 29.2 points. I don't know how he'll be able to do that with Ben Simmons on him, But it's going to be a very interesting series. And if Trae Young is going to be able to produce those type of numbers, another star is going to be born this year for sure. And he's going to be huge in the future.
A Star is Born, the sequel starring Trae Young.
Right, Ice Trae.
So speaking of Ice Trae, Zarita, what do the 76ers have to do to contain him?
I think play defense, first of all. It, like EJ said, it's going to depend on whether or not Embiid is available, because just looking at the numbers when he's not there, they just fall off. And like, for example, Danny Green, you are a 3-and-D guy, but your numbers for last game, he had 5 points. Like, it's things like that where if you're gonna focus on defense, you also kind of have to even it out with your offense. And these guys, unless they can be streaky, unless Tobias Harris continues what he's been doing, which he's been great. Ben Simmons, he's on and off. They need Joel Embiid in order to get over this team. But I think one thing that Philly has is experience over the Hawks, and I think that'll go a long way for them in this series.
Totally. Ken, can we get your thoughts about the series and who you think will come out on top?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be the 76ers. I mean, I just feel like it would be a disastrous. But then again, Doc Rivers, 3-1. He hasn't shown very recently that he can pull off, late series wins. But I don't know. I mean, Tobias Harris has been like he's looked amazing to me. He had 19.4 points per game. Oh no, hold on. Let me see it. 25 points a game, 10 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 1.2 steals per game this last series. Those are monster numbers for a guy that has been struggling in the postseason like almost all of his career. This guy has showed up, and I think he's going to continue to show up, especially with Joel Embiid out. I mean, like my biggest thing is like how successful is Hackabend going to be this series? I know that the Wizards really like made Ben look vulnerable, but like I feel like Atlanta might compound on that and build up on that. I mean, what was the percentage here? 35.7% free throw. What is that? Like, who shoots that bad from a line when you're not being guarded? Like this, it's crazy to me. How are you a worse shooter than Shaq at the line? This is insane. Historically bad. And he's your point guard. I mean, like, it's still crazy to me. Like Dwight Howard on your team shoots better. He shoots 56.7%. Like, come on. Like, I just don't get Ben Simmons. He's such an amazing player. You know, he averaged 14.8 points, 10.2 rebounds, 9.2 assists this last series. Like almost a triple double. But you can't even make a literally a free shot. Like, it's just. I'm a bad free throw shooter, but I shoot better than this guy. So I feel like, I mean, I don't think the Hawks will expose enough of the 76ers weaknesses to win, because the Hawks also have their holes. But I mean, I feel like also if there's anyone that can come into Philly and Philly's fans are more brutal than New York's, based on what NBA players say. They're more brutal than New York's, and if he can come in and play his villain role and show out the way he showed out against the Knicks, that's the only way that I think that this can be a very interesting series. Is if Trae, continues to be that dude. And wills his team to beat a stacked Philly squad.
Absolutely. So, well, we have two hugely anticipated matchups coming in the Eastern Conference, but that's going to wrap up this portion of the show. Time for a quick break, and when we come back, we will be right back talking about the NFL. Stay tuned.
Broadcast journalist Weng de la Fuente returns on Philippine television and radio to deliver top stories and engage with the country's policymakers, shapers, and movers. Tatalakayin ang mga pangunahing balita live sa teleradyo ng Net25 at Radyo Aguila DCEC 1062. Kasama si Weng de la Fuente sa Balit Talakayan.
Ako si Weng de la Fuente at itong Balit Talakayan, we live in interesting times.
Corporations around the world have been committed to fulfilling their social responsibility, whether it's protecting the environment or working to fight poverty on a local, national, or global level. Ngunit dumating ang pandemic. COVID-19 changed life as we know it, upending businesses and terminating people's livelihoods. Ngunit nakita natin na maraming tumulong na mga korporasyon upang makabangon ang mga maliliit na negosyo sa gitna ng pandemya. Maging ang mga MSMEs din mismo o maliliit na negosyo ay may naiambag na ayuda sa kani-kanilang mga komunidad. Kaya't pag-uusapan natin ang corporate social responsibility o ang tinatawag na CSR. Ano nga ba ito? At uso pa ba ito ngayon na halos lahat ay nangangailangan, maliit man o malaking negosyo? Tatalakayin ito ni Randy Bernardino, ang ating OFB correspondent mula sa Las Vegas, with our guests Maribeth Marasigan, Board Chairperson of the League of Corporate Foundations, and its Board Secretary Reginald Andal. All these in this episode of Open for Business.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is EBC Sports International. I'm Michael Hudson reporting from Seattle, Washington. Now, we move on to a totally different sport, the NFL. Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones has already made it known his desire to lead the team. And there have been many interested parties, my Seattle Seahawks being one of them, and also the Tennessee Titans, just to name a couple. Ken, give us your thoughts on the situation and if Julio will be with another team this upcoming season, and if so, with who?
I mean, I feel like it's best for all parties, right? I mean, Atlanta is currently struggling, will struggle with cap space. And so unloading Julio Jones, who doesn't want to be there, seems like it's a win-win for both parties. But you got to get it at the best price, right? So, I mean, everyone wants Julio Jones if they can get him, but who's willing to pay for it? And I think other than the two teams that you mentioned, I think the Patriots have the cap space and have the assets to trade and make both parties happy, right? So I believe what they're looking to give is a 22 first-round pick, I think a wide receiver, and I think it's Stephen Gilmore for Julio Jones. And so what that does is that allows Atlanta to clear that cap space, get them a wide receiver and a sweet cornerback. And the Patriots are able to match up Cam Newton with Julio Jones, at least to start off the season. And I think that would be a win-win for both, a win-win-win. So that's a win for the Patriots, that's a win for Julio Jones, and that's a win for Atlanta Hawks. I mean, Atlanta, I'm just thinking NBA for Atlanta too, for the Falcons.
Yeah. EJ, how about you, man? Where do you think he's going anywhere this coming season?
Yeah, I mean, with the way that everyone's talking about Julio Jones, I feel like it's going to be inevitable that he's going to be moved. Now, I haven't done any research on salary caps or trade assets or anything like that, but I think the best organization who needs to try their best to get Julio Jones is actually the Green Bay Packers. We all know how upset Aaron Rodgers has been this offseason. And it's making news. I feel like every single week that Aaron Rodgers is, unhappy, but it seems like Aaron Rodgers is going to be sticking around. Now, if the Packers front office want to make amends with their franchise quarterback, MVP last season, then they need to make him happy. And one of the things that they haven't been able to do over the last couple of years is give him some additional weapons to throw to. Now, if they add a Julio Jones, I think that would make Aaron Rodgers extremely happy and might be able to make amends for Aaron Rodgers and the front office of the Green Bay Packers. So I think if any organization needs to lay it all on the line to get Julio Jones, I think it makes the most sense for the Green Bay Packers to give their all to try and get him in order to get an additional weapon, but most of all to make Aaron Rodgers happy over there in Green Bay.
Absolutely. So we'll definitely see what happens with that, and we'll keep you viewers posted on where he goes next. So we're going to one of our last topics. So we're going to swing back to the NBA and debate the preview coming up between the Nuggets and the Suns. The Nuggets won the regular season matchup 2-1, and we can all agree that this is going to be an epic matchup. Game 1 is going to be this Monday in Phoenix. Zarita, let's get your thoughts on the matchup and also who you think is going to come out on top this series.
I think it's going to be Nuggets, but it's going to go to like a Game 6, Game 7. I think it's going to be a really good series, one I'm really looking forward to. But I think in this case, Suns are going to get a reality check of what it takes to be in the playoffs for a long time. And I think that's where the Nuggets do have that advantage. And plus you have Jokic, who's playing absolute prime MVP season, and he's continuing it on into the playoffs. And when you have a guy like Ayton who's going to be the one matched up against him, I think again it's just Ayton's not going to be able to do it. He's not going to be able to contain him. Jokic is averaging 33 points and 10 rebounds. Ayton kind of dropped off towards the end of that series with the Lakers, and also the Lakers were just a weaker team compared to the Nuggets, and that's why the Suns look as great as they are. I have no problem with Booker. Booker's going to get his shots in. That's going to be a constant there. Plus, Nuggets also have Michael Porter Jr., who's kind of stepped up since Murray got injured. He's showing that he is who he was supposed to be when he got drafted. So I think it's going to be a good series, but I do have the Nuggets coming out of this one.
Ooh, gotcha. So, Ken, besides the core of Michael Porter Jr. and Jokic on the Nuggets side, and then Booker and CP3 on the Suns side, who do you think is going to be the X factor in this series?
Mr. Bay Area himself, my guy who's been waiting for this opportunity his entire career, Aaron Gordon. This guy, he matches and pairs well with Jokic. Jokic finds him, and this guy was hungry. I mean, I think it was this. I forgot what it was. It was a critical part of this last game against Portland. He showed up, and I was kind of surprised that he did. He grabbed some boards, timely baskets, and so I feel like with this guy finally getting his burn, his shine, and especially with Jamal Murray not being in the lineup, he has every opportunity to show the world who he is, and that he's not just a dunker that lost twice to Zach LaVine. Potentially could have won one or two of those dunk contests. But I mean, I feel like this guy will definitely and who's going to guard him from the Suns? Jay Crowder? No way. This guy's just going to jump over Jay Crowder like how Vince Carter jumped over that 7-footer in the Olympics.
Boy, that would be a sight. EJ, please lend us your thoughts about the series and who you think is going to take it.
Oh, man. I'm going to be rooting for the Phoenix Suns. Devin Booker has looked amazing. Kobe told him to be legendary, and that's what he's been doing. And now LeBron says continue to be legendary, so we're going to see him continue to be legendary in this series. And I don't want to give disrespect to the Phoenix Suns because they ranked in the top 10 on defensive ranking this year. And I think that with the loss of Jamal Murray, obviously for the season, and Will Barton being unhealthy and unavailable in that first series, that Denver, I don't know, they're just not. I don't think Jokic is going to be able to. I don't know. I just don't have the faith in Jokic for some reason. I don't think he's going to be able to keep them in the series by himself. And the Suns have looked great. I'm going to be rooting for them for sure in this upcoming series.
Gotcha. All right, guys. So we only have about a minute and a half left. We're just going to jump right into our question of the week. So without any introduction, the question is, if you were a superstar athlete and you could sign on with one brand, who would it be and why? Zarita, we'll start with you.
I'm gonna go like Lone Wolf. Whoever wants to take like New Balance, give me Peak in China. I want the company all to myself. I'm not signing with Nike. I'm not signing with Adidas. I want a company that's focused on me. That's it.
Gotcha. Ken, how about you, my man?
Oh, it gotta be Kirkland's signature. Costco, baby. Give me all those discounts. Let's go. Samples.
I guess I'm the only one going with the check, man. I'm going with Nike. Nike, because I would get both Nike sneakers and Jordan. So you know me, I'm the shoe head, so I gotta go Nike, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I'll probably go. I think I'd be a golfer, so I'd go with the Jordan brand, so I could get like those sick like.
Oh, their Jordan golf shoes that they're coming out with are sick.
Their baseball cleats are crazy.
All right, everybody. Well, hey, thanks for that's all the time we have for this week's edition of EBC Sports International. On behalf of everyone on our panel, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and be sure to tune in again next week. Make sure to visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Eagles News PH to join the conversation. For EBC Sports International, I'm Michael Hudson. We live in interesting times.
Rise up every Saturday morning sa mga balitang dapat mong malaman sa Agila, Pilipinas at Eagle News International. Sa Winner Saturdays, panalo naman ang hapon mo sa mga talento ng Pinoy sa kantahan sa Tagisan ng Galing Part 2, Singing Edition at Letters and Music. Meron din sa mga sports lovers, EBC Sports International. And get to know more about entrepreneurship with Open for Business. Sa Weekends Prime, tuloy-tuloy ang pagbabalita sa mata ng Agila Weekend. Samahan naman si Miss Gladys Reyes Sumero sa kwentuhang pampamilya, Moments. At abangan ang bagong kwento na handog sa inyo ng Net25. Patutunayan na ang nakalimutan ng isip, naaalala ng puso. Ikaw ay akin. Mula umaga hanggang gabi, panalo ang Sabado mo. All that and more, only here on Net25.
Ang pagmamahal sa kapwa, maging anuman ang lahi o ang pananampalataya nito, ay pinakamahalagang katangian ng naniniwala at umiibig sa Diyos.